Hello, my friends. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Momentum Boost. I'm your host, Adrienne Gold Davis, and I'm thrilled that you're joining me in my purple Purim wig today once again for our fabulous show. Now, just remember to ask our guest a question. You just type it into the chat box on the right. So, because of Purim, our theme and emphasis this month in Momentum Land is the trait of courage. The great American writer Ambrose Redmoon once said that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather courage is the decision that something is more important than your fear. But courage without appropriate purpose can rapidly degrade into recklessness. And like most things, this trait has to be refined and directed appropriately. As we move towards the holiday of Purim, we learn of a woman whose courage was epic, whose ability to direct her brave heart led to the Jewish people's victory over the nefarious plans of the evil Haman. Well, one of the most profound aspects of Queen Esther's strength and courage is found in the story of her very painful beginnings. You see, her father, we learn, died during her mother's pregnancy, and her mother died at her birth. She was born with that existential wound of being utterly alone, with no one, parentless. Now, Judaism teaches us that the great ones among us will often use even their pain as the ladder to their own greatness. Because Esther had no one, she sought out and found a deep relationship with God, her Father in heaven. And because of this seeking, she connected herself to the source of all strength and was able to see God's hand in her life. Rebbitzin Zipporah Heller wrote that God is the hidden character in the book of Esther. His name is never even mentioned. And as the events were played out in real time, few were able to see God's hidden presence. Now, Esther's cousin Mordechai, who later became her spiritual guide and ultimately her husband, well, he took her in. And we learned that the circumstances of her birth were no coincidence. Alienation and loneliness, we learned, are tools like any others and are given to us to enable us to become who we might be. And it was from that place of emptiness that Esther's profound attachment to God truly blossomed. You know, when my eldest son was a little boy, I used to hear him at night in bed. He'd be playing a game of flip the coin. I'd stand outside in the hall and behind his door, and I would hear him going, heads, and then tails, and then I win, ha! And now this child hated going to bed. He hated feeling separated from me or for the family for something as boring as sleeping. So one night, I stood at his door listening. I tapped gently and I said, honey, who are you playing with? There was this brief and awkward silence. I thought, maybe he has an imaginary friend, it's normal. And then he said, I'm playing flip the coin with God, Mommy, and he always lets me win. But as we lose our childlike openness and vulnerabilities, we often stop looking for the presence of God in our lives. We place a mask over our eyes and over our hearts, and we present the face that also doubles as a mask. Purim, we learn about what is hiding behind that mask from a woman whose very name, Esther, comes from the word sater, or concealment. For today's boost, we're going to offer you a modern day role model of courage and of partnership with the Almighty. This woman's courage and conviction allowed her to literally share a part of herself with a stranger. Like Queen Esther, this woman walks the talk. She feels the fear and she does it anyway, not recklessly, but purposefully, with grace and with her hand metaphorically holding the hand of her Father in heaven. She's ripped off her mask and helps us do the same. Today, on the first episode of our new series, Generous Generations, How to Turn Your Children into Givers, Lori Palatnik joins us for an honest conversation about her own Esther moment and what compelled her to donate her kidney to a complete stranger, and how to give even when it's challenging, and how each of us have it in us to give more than we ever imagined. I want to thank the Staenberg Family Foundation for sponsoring this important 5-part series. Lori Palatnik is the founding director of Momentum, and she is a world-renowned Jewish educator, a speaker, a writer, and a media personality, and she's lectured all over the world and authored many books. And Hadassah named Lori one of the most outstanding Jewish American women of our time. And in 2020, Lori was selected to light the diaspora torch at the national ceremony for Israel's 72nd Independence Day. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Lori Palatnik.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you. And thank you to the Staenberg Foundation. It's really a pleasure to speak to you tonight. You think it took courage for Adrienne to wear a purple wig? It didn't. She's having the time of her life. So my story of really started about 13 or 14 years ago, maybe even longer, gosh, maybe about 15 years ago. I was living in Denver, Colorado, and my husband was actually learning with an older gentleman. And one day my husband said to me, like, oh, do you notice that he always wears a beeper? And I'm like, oh yeah, he does. He says, well, you want to know why? I said, why? He says, because he's waiting for a kidney. That he needs a kidney donation. He has some sort of kidney disease. And if they find a match, he has to get to the hospital right away. So that night I went on to Rabbi Google and I just Googled, I just wanted to know what he was going through. Kidney foundation, kidney donation, kidney transplant. Now, before I started this, I have to tell you, I knew I had kidneys and I knew they were in there somewhere and I knew they did something important, but I really didn't know. So God gives us 2 4-ounce kidneys and they're at our backs, the lower back, and they're filters. They're filters. So things go into your body, they keep the good things and they filter out anything that is poisonous, anything that's bad for you. If your kidneys are not working properly, the things that are not good for you stay in your body and you get sicker and sicker and sicker. And there's many reasons why a person would need a kidney. They might be born with a kidney disease. It could be they had some sort of cancer and through the radiation, their kidneys got damaged. It could be they got into an accident, and it could be they have a kidney disease. It could, or they've done something. Some of the diseases are hereditary, and there's many reasons why a person would need a kidney. And on one of the sites, it went down like, what would make a good kidney donation, a kidney donor? Because you can get a kidney from a cadaver, which is somebody who passed away, but it's not as good as getting from somebody who's alive, a healthy person. So I'm going down the list on this site, and it's like, oh, you can't be very, very overweight. You can't be very, very underweight. You can't have had any kidney disease in your family. You can't be diabetic. You can't have had any like life-threatening disease. And I'm just going down, going like, check, 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 check. I could do this. So I went to this man and his wife and I said, I'm thinking about like, maybe I could be somebody who could donate a kidney to you. So obviously they were very moved. We went to the doctor and the doctor didn't even test me. He said, absolutely not, because he was a big man and I'm not a big woman. And unless there's a really, really high chance that this is going to work, they don't risk anybody's life. So they said no. And we appealed. They said, no, done. Okay, time goes on. This was in Denver, Colorado. I moved to Washington, D.C. area. Time goes on. I get a random email. And the subject line was, 4-year-old Jewish boy needs a kidney. So of course I clicked on and I wrote and I said, I actually looked into this, last year, and I think I'm actually a very good candidate to donate a kidney. A few days later, they wrote back. They said, actually, he's too sick to have the surgery, but would you be willing to be tested for somebody else? And that was my first moral dilemma. For a man we know and love, take my kidney. A 4-year-old Jewish boy, take my kidney. For somebody I didn't even know. And then I thought, well, somebody knows them. Just because I don't know them? Is this somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's friend, somebody's mother? So I wrote back and I said, yes, I'd be willing to be tested. And I didn't tell my husband. Now, obviously, I told my husband later, but why bring up something and it's just going to be like a whole thing and it's going to turn into nothing? And, so I didn't tell him. They sent me back some forms that I had to fill out and fax back to them. And then a few days later, they said, you've been accepted as a possible, they call them Samaritan donors. That means giving to somebody that you've never met before. So somebody who's unrelated to you. So then they said you have to do all these medical tests. You have to be tested from head to toe because they want to make sure you're like super, super healthy. Now I have to tell my husband. So I want you to appreciate how great my husband is. I waited one night till he was in a very good mood. And I said, Yaakov, could we talk about something completely different? He said, sure. And I told him what I was thinking of doing. And you know what he said? He said, I saw the papers on your desk. I was waiting for you to come and talk to me about it. Now, if it was reversed and I saw papers on his desk, I would not be holding back. I'd be like, what are you doing? But he's much greater than I am. Now, I want you to know he did not jump up and down and go, yay, 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 go do it, mitzvah girl. No, he said, hold on. We have 5 children, you have responsibilities. What kind of risks are you putting you in? We need to ask our rabbi. I want to talk to a doctor. I'm like, great. Call our rabbi, talk to a doctor, great. And then I continued on in the process because he didn't say no. So when your husband doesn't say no, he didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. So you keep going until you hear a no. So then whenever a lot of the testing had to be done at the Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx, that's where all this was happening, at the Kidney Transplant Center. And whenever I got an opportunity to go to New York to speak, I always said yes, and I'd go and these tests. And this went on for a few months. And they really test you from head to toe to make sure you're healthy. And they actually have found people through the test. They have found sometimes that there's something wrong with somebody. They didn't even know if something was wrong with them. And they couldn't donate their kidney, but by them wanting to save somebody else's life, their life was saved. I met Dr. Greenstein, he's actually a Shomer Shabbat Jew, who's head of the Montefiore Hospital Kidney Transplant Clinic. And I asked him, I said, if you can live a perfectly normal, healthy life with 1 kidney, why would God give you 2? And he said, 1 to keep and 1 to give away. At a certain point, they tested me for 3 different women, and I matched 2 of them. And one in particular, they thought this was the ideal person for me to give my kidney to. I asked them, I was curious, like, can you tell me anything about them? So not only was I dealing with Jewish people, well, the original email I got was from kidneymitzvah@aol.com. So I knew I was dealing with Jewish people. Not that that was a requirement for me. And I also realized these 2 women, they're religious. How did I know? They said, well, one lives in Brooklyn and has 12 children, and one lives in Muncie and has 7 children. Do the math. So it seems like the woman from Muncie with 7 children was the ideal match. And at this point, my husband was still dragging his feet. Like he still did not call the rabbi and he still did not talk to a doctor. So finally, we arranged for, actually my daughter arranged for him to talk to our rabbi. And he told Rabbi Noach Weinberg, of blessed memory, what I was thinking of doing. And Reb Noach said back to him, this is a very big mitzvah. You should support Lori 100%. And that's all my husband needed to know. And he was on board. Great. So then they had to set a date. And that was my next moral dilemma. So they said, well, let's set a date for the surgery. I said, well, I can't do it now because we're moving from a townhouse to a house. So I can't be like, we're moving. And then it's my daughter's bat mitzvah. And then I had speaking engagements. People sometimes they book me like a year in advance and they're promoting it and they put money into it and I can't just like tell them no. And then it was the high holidays and I'm usually a featured speaker during the high holidays and I can't just let them down like locally. And then I felt terrible. This woman needs a kidney to save her life. And my calendar is very full. And they said, no, Lori, it has to be good for everyone. We're sustaining her, don't worry. So finally, we set a date that was good for them, also in their schedule, and it was good for me as well, which was mid-December. So I remember the plan was that I was going to go to and also they keep testing you all the time. So the plan was I was going to go to, I remember I was going to travel the surgery was on a Thursday and I was going to travel with my husband on a Sunday. and get tested Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, have the surgery on Thursday. My husband would go back and spend Shabbat with our kids. And I would stay a couple of days and recover. It's almost like they do it laparoscopically. It's kind of like getting your appendix out. So I realized on the Saturday night after Shabbat, before we were going to leave the next day, I realized this is a very bad plan. Okay, this is not a good plan because my husband is the reason he became a rabbi and not a doctor. When I'm giving birth, he's like a deer in the headlights. So I actually asked my friend Rebecca, who later on became one of the founders of Momentum with me, if she would go with me. Now I have to tell you that 2 weeks before the surgery, I got a call from the clinic. Remember, this has been going on for months. So I got a call from the clinic and they said, we told the woman who's going to receive your kidney, like the recipient, we told her about you yesterday because they wait till the last minute. Why do they wait till the last minute? Because a lot of people change their mind. When I was floating this out to the women who came to my classes or to people, almost universally, I got negative feedback. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Don't you know you have to be on a special diet for the rest of your life, which is not true. And they had all these misconceptions and they were actually making appointments with me. Let's go out for coffee. And they don't want to talk about their marriage. They're trying to talk me out of doing this. Do you ever have a sense and a drive within you that there's something you have to do? Even if everybody around you is telling you you're crazy or you're going to fail or no one's ever done this before, or a lot of times, most of the time, when people are negative back to you, it's not about you. It's about them, that they're trying to justify the choices they've made. And they're trying to sometimes hold you back because they think you're going to perhaps in some ways outgrow them. I'm not talking about my situation, but I'm talking about your situation, that we all have things inside us. And at one point, my friend Rebecca said to me, Lori, because she wasn't even in favor of this either. And she goes, Lori, why are you doing this? And I said, I don't even know why. But sometimes you just know in your heart and soul that this is something you should do. So 2 weeks before the surgery, when they called me, they told her, and I said, well, what did she say? And they said she couldn't believe it. She was so blown away. And they asked me, do you want to talk to her? And I said, yes, no, yes, no, yes. I had mixed feelings. My husband said, don't talk to her. Why? He said, what if she's not nice? What if she's judgmental? What if she's a smoker? Just because she needs a kidney and she's a Jewish woman doesn't mean she's a nice person. He said, you're still going to give her your kidney, but maybe it's going to take away a little bit of the pleasure. Better not to know. But I felt instinctively that I needed more of an emotional connection to this woman to get me through the next few weeks. So I said to them, yes, I would like to speak to her. Tell her it's not a condition. If she wants to speak to me, I want to speak to her. So for the next 3 days, I kept my phone on around the clock. And I remember it was a Wednesday night, I was walking in to give an evening class. And just before I walked into the classroom, my phone rings. I don't even look at it. Hello? And it's her. I said, oh my gosh, I so want to talk to you, but I'm about to go teach a class. Can you call me in an hour? She goes, of course. During the class, I was so distracted. And usually at the end of the class, the women want to ask me questions. They come over and I'm like, class is over. See you next week. Bye. I went into my office and she called. And I remember the first thing she said to me. She said, Lori, what's thank you? I'm just going to say thank you. And then she asked me, who are you? And I said, are you on your computer? And she goes, yeah, I'm at my computer. I told her which site to go to, and I told her to go down and see these video blogs. I click on, I go, that's me, and that's what I do. And then we wanted to know everything about each other. We talked for 4 hours. She's also the energizer bunny of her family. And she had just, the year before, or the year or two before, she had a hernia, and she had routine blood tests to take care of it. And they came back and they said, there's something wrong with you. And because often when your kidneys are failing, you don't even know it until it's really too late. She got all of these lists, and they thought her sister would be a good donor for her, but like a week before the surgery, they canceled the surgery because her sister was spilling too much protein into her urine, and she says when they canceled the surgery, she goes, Lori, my sister was devastated. My children were inconsolable, and I didn't leave my room for a week. And then she got the call about me. On the night before the surgery, I was tested on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I remember like on Wednesday, I met my surgeon because Dr. Greenstein was going to be her surgeon who puts my kidney in her. But there was a female surgeon who was going to take the kidney out of me. And I had to sign forms because even though like it's like an appendix, still they're putting you under, and God forbid things can happen and you have to sign all these forms. And she said to me, Lori, when they're wheeling you into the operating room, you can still change your mind. I won't tell them you changed your mind. I'll tell them I found something surgically. We can't do the surgery. Let me be the fall guy. So then I was nervous. I think that was on Tuesday that we had that conversation. And then the next day, Wednesday, I woke up and I was nervous. And I said to Rebecca, Rebecca, I'm nervous. And she goes, let's go into the city and let's distract you. So to really distract me, we picked up my daughter who was going to college in New York, and we took her out with her and her friends for a kosher dinner. On the way, the phone rings, and it's her. I want you to appreciate what a special, special woman this is. I said, hi, how you doing? How you feeling? Because they're testing her too. She said, Lori, I'm calling to tell you, you don't have to do this. You have 5 children. You have responsibilities in the Jewish world. I'll be fine with a full heart. Really, it's okay. You don't have to do this. Now, I want to tell you, I'm a nice person. I'm not that nice. If this was reversed, I'd be at home praying, don't change your mind, don't change your mind, don't change your mind. And she's giving me a hall pass. And I said, it's unbelievable you're saying this, but I will be there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. You can count on me. When we got to the restaurant, my phone rings again. And it's her son. She didn't tell her children until the last minute because they were so devastated when it got canceled before. And I left the table and he said to me, I'm calling on behalf of all the children to thank you for saving our mommy's life because we love our mommy so much. This was the world I was in. The next day, the next morning, some people asked me, was there ever a moment that you felt like maybe like backing out? There was one moment. They prep me, they take me in. I just walk in with the nurse into there was like a semi-sterile room, and we're in there, and she's putting her hand on the operating room door. She goes, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Hold on, I have to say a prayer." So I said the Shema because you're supposed to say it the last thing before you die, and just in case, God forbid. And I was afraid once I got in I would forget, and I said a prayer, and then I asked God that I want to live and why, and I want her to live and why. And I said, "Okay, fine." She opens the door. I walk in and I freak out. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. There looked like 35 people in the room with the concave mirrors, and it's cold to keep it sterile. And there's like steel, flat, table I'm supposed to get on with straps. It looks like an autopsy is supposed to take place, and I'm supposed to get on there. And I froze. And I said to myself, Lori, what are you doing? And I closed my eyes. I said, just do it, just do it. And I laid down. And the next thing I knew, I was in recovery. It was amazing. 2 years after the surgery, she invited me to her daughter's wedding. So of course I went to her daughter's wedding. How do you think I felt at her daughter's wedding? Here's the chuppah. Ceremony finishes. They start leaving the chuppah. She runs into my arms, thanking me for letting her live to see this day. What amount of money would I have traded for that moment? What material possession? I can't describe to you the joy that I felt, the pleasure. Esther Hamalka, Queen Esther, she stood up and she risked her life to save the Jewish people. But when Mordecai said to stand up to save the Jewish people, she said no. Because there are times, and where is that coming from? That fear, it's coming from the body. The soul is filled with courage. You're filled with courage. I'm not telling you have to stand up and save the Jewish people. And I'm not even telling you you should donate your kidney, even though it was the greatest experience of my life. But I am telling you that every day we have opportunities for courage. When that teenager, your teenager, presses your buttons and you don't react, that took courage. When you go beyond your comfort zone and you try something, even though somebody says, well, what happened? We have places of comfort that keeps us safe, but that's not where life is. Life really does begin at the end of your comfort zone. But if you are interested in perhaps donating your kidney, because a bunch of people have when they heard my story. Well, if Lori can do it, I can do it. So you should contact Renewal, renewal.org. Renewal.org is a Jewish organization that matches people up. Unbelievable stories. Just go on their website, renewal.org, and just take a look. And if you're not going to give your kidney, perhaps think of just being a giver, because givers are happy people. I bless you all with courage. And I think that the recipient, who now we're very, very good friends, I think she might be out there listening, or perhaps. I love you very much. Be safe and be well. And Adrian, what can I tell you? That's my story.
Lori, it's so beautiful that I get weepy. I just have to pull myself together for a minute. I don't know if it's your tears or just being moved. There are many, many questions, and unfortunately, we don't have time for all of them. I'm going to ask you one or two, and I just want you to know that the chat function is just filled with people saying they can't get enough of you. And you are such a queen. Like, you are such a queen. All women are queens, but you help us straighten our own crowns by straightening yours. And that model is beloved to the thousands and thousands, the tens of thousands of women that Momentum has impacted based on your vision and your modeling. So let me give you this one. How did your children respond when they found out you were going to donate your kidney? How old were they at the time? Likely they had very different responses.
Yeah, so at the time, it was 13 years ago that it happened, just over 13. So I guess the oldest was 20 or 19. The oldest was 19, down to 9. So, they're kind of used to their Ima doing things a little bit out of the box. I'm a little bit of an unorthodox woman. So it was kind of like another thing Ima's doing. But I think they were proud. And you know what? It's very blood driven. So I'm an O positive, and O's can donate to anyone, but can only receive from an O. And so I said to, I would only have one kidney. So who's my backup kidney in case, God forbid, something happens to mine? So I have a daughter, and she's an O. So I said, you're my backup kidney. She goes, okay, but who's my backup kidney? So then she found somebody. So we have it, so on and so on and so on.
Oh, Lori, I wish you could feel the love. You'll read the chat afterwards. I'll send it to you. Here's an interesting question. Do you have any regrets not remaining anonymous to the recipient? Interesting.
That is interesting. I thought about it. And again, I would never, ever give up the friendship I have with her now. We are kidney sisters. We love each other. She has been to my children's weddings. I have a daughter who spent time with her when she was in New York for a while, like when she was in transition, like from Israel to her next stage in life. We really love each other. And I always tell her, I said, I got more out of it than you did. She goes, no, Lori, I got more out of it than you did. Because it really was the greatest experience of my life. And people often are critical, like, well, how could it be greater than having children? Well, the initial desire to have a child is a little bit selfish. I want a baby. See my baby? Well, quickly you learn that you're in it for them and they're not in it, and not for you. But this was the purest opportunity God ever gave me to give, just to give. And I'd rather give it to somebody I don't know, because I'm glad nobody I know needs a kidney. And like, Sometimes you give it, people tell me that if you give to somebody you know, there's a little bit of an imbalance. There were two sisters and one gave to the other, they told me at the clinic. And so like the sister who like received the kidney says, I can never say no to my sister, like break fast at your house. Well, what am I going to say? You gave me my kidney. I don't want anybody to feel they owe me. You need a kidney, take my kidney, have a good life, because I'm the hate. Like,
Oh, you're so beautiful. And everyone is saying it. Okay, one last question is all we have time for. What advice can you give us to have our own Esther moments?
So first of all, you've already had some. So I want you to think before Purim begins about moments in life where you could have gone left or you could have gone right. And it took a lot of courage to go right. Moments where you stood up against like the everything inside you that's telling you no, 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 or everybody's telling you no, but you're in touch with your neshama, your soul, and you say yes. You already have it. So remember it and draw from it and realize, because if I would tell you, and Adrian, think right now of something heavy that happened in your life. You got it? If I would have told you, Adrian, before this happened to you, this is what's going to happen to you, what would you have said? No, 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 Lori, that I couldn't handle, but you did. And you're sitting here as testimony that not only you handled it, I would put money down that you grew tremendously from it, that you're a different person because of it, that you're stronger, that you're more sensitive to other people. You could help people because you went through it. We have all been through things and we all will go through things. And we have the courage within us. You've got it. You've got it.
Oh, Lori, I don't even know how to thank you for joining us today and sharing your heart and soul and wisdom with us. This has been such an illuminating conversation. There's been so many comments and so many questions, and we do hope that you'll join us again in the future and talk a little bit more. I also want to thank once again the Staenberg Family Foundation for sponsoring the Generous Generations 5-part series. As you can all see, this is going to help you help everyone become givers. And I want you to make sure to join us next Wednesday. That's March the 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Generation to Generation Passover lessons on parenting. During the Passover Seder, you know, our kids ask us the 4 questions. And those are prompts that let us teach them why this night is different from all other nights. But there's more than just 4 lessons to be learned from Passover. So Momentum Educator, the wonderful Neely Cousins, is going to join us in next week's Boost and share the many opportunities the Passover story gives us to teach our children and pass down Judaism's important traditions. But for me, Adrienne Gold Davis, your own Esther for the day. And from all of us at Momentum, remember that as we learn and grow together, that the highest form of wisdom is kindness.